What we're talking about, Jeff, over the next several sessions is really going to be focused around the multi-domain architecture. And the thing that you brought out numerous times, which is you need visibility across all of those domains. And when you get visibility, you get analytics. And what do you know? I just said visibility and analytics, which is one of those cross-cutting capabilities as called out by CISA in their maturity model for zero trust. And then the next thing is, now that I got visibility, I've analyzed it, I know what I need to do, I need to be able to orchestrate and automate the processes. And automation and orchestration is another one of those cross-cutting capabilities as defined. So here we have security leadership that is telling us you need to be focused on visibility and analytics, automation and orchestration. And now when you bring that into multi-domain, it gets more complex, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It does. And part of that, again, going back to, we need to have a baseline determination of what in the world we have, right? And at that point, what do we have? What flows are going across? How do we do, basic manageability? And then at that point, we've got these top level controllers in these domains, right? Well, like you're saying, orchestration across, how do we achieve orchestration and feed down into those controllers so that we can actually have some actionable data?
You are so spot on. And I think one of the things that was most impressive to me out of the M2209 directive from OMB, they said, look at what CIS is doing with maturity model for the pillars associated with zero trust. And so many folks have talked about the pillars, right? And the 5 pillars, and yet it's the cross-domain elements that make you mature. So the visibility and analytics, the automation and orchestration, because it's when you do it dynamically, it's when it's continuous, and when it's integrated, that's how you move up on maturity of a zero trust model. And I think that's what so many people are focused on, the basics, that they're not thinking through. I've got to put all of those elements together so they work together, which is why we're having this session and series on multi-domain architectures.
So what are some use cases for cross-domain orchestration and automation that you've seen so far?
I think the most important one, and one of the other things in all of my discussions with NIST, they always say, Steve, if people would just leverage what they already own. I was with one of the largest federal agency CISOs not too long ago, just before COVID hit. And she said, Steve, tell me about a Cisco security tool that I'm not taking full advantage of. And I said, ma'am, when was the last time you thought about a Cisco switch? And she looked at me and said, Steve, I said security tool. And I looked back at her, I said, exactly. And all of a sudden the light bulb went off. Because that switch, as defined in the Zero Trust Architecture 800-207 Special Pub by NIST, says that intelligent switch can be a policy enforcement point and is part of her repertoire to be able to address vulnerabilities. And all of a sudden the domain changed. That agency is now doing cross-domain everything because they see that all of the elements, the organization that dealt with apps, one security, networking, data center, all needed to work together.
Absolutely. And that's the power of this, right? From a programmable fabrics perspective, think about it this way. The whole of the enterprise works like a router, right? How does a router work? It's got a control plane. It's got a data plane. What's the control plane? It's the brains of the operation. Packet comes in, routers route between networks. Where do I forward it, right? And then at that point, we fast path it, switch it across. It's similar to what we're talking about.
That is awesome summary. So listen to what we just said on this one, and then look at all of the other elements that are coming up in this series. And I think you're going to find how they all fit together as we do deep dives.
Absolutely.
Hi, I'm Steve Vetter with Cisco Systems. I'm a senior global strategist working on helping clients understand the capabilities of the products that we deliver and the solutions that we deliver to the marketplace. I'm here with my friend Mosa.
I'm Mosa Imamjamet, principal engineer at CTG Federal, and I help our customers navigate the cloud, on-prem, and everything in between.
And today we're going to have a really exciting discussion on how users access applications and data. And in the old days, everybody used to think about it, I've got something called, believe it or not, a data center. And that data center would have compute, storage, and networking infrastructure, and that is how people would be able to access the information. And then a few years ago, this really neat thing came along that many of us may have known as we grew up, called a cloud. And that cloud capability migrated that compute, that storage, and the networking infrastructure into a consolidated ecosystem and put it in the cloud. But the problem we found now that we've gone from cloud first to cloud smart is that the expense of that cloud, especially when you get to scale, can be daunting. And so maybe there is a potential middle ground, Mosa, for our government clients in particular to be able to scale and tailor a capability that might give them the best of both worlds. What do you think?
Absolutely. Gartner said by 2025, most infrastructure, whether it's on prem, in the cloud, or at a branch office, will all have to be integrated and connected together. So that leads us to the question, where is the best place to connect all that infrastructure and place that? And so there's a place in between all of this known as the colo or co-location facility. And what that allows us to do is place our own equipment, our own racks, servers, firewalls, networking devices, security appliances, whatever it may be, place that within our co-located facility, have all the power, cooling, everything managed, and have a direct connection, low latency connection to the cloud, another high-speed connection into our data center. And what that allows us to do is allows us to connect users that may be connected from all over the world into the co-located facility and have easy access to the applications they need in the cloud and the workloads, the sensitive data that may be kept on-prem.
And what this enabled was the same concepts of the power of the cloud, easy to consume. If delivered as a service, it means that all of the capability that was in the data center can now be tailored for the government organization inside of the colo facility, but at a reduced cost. And because a cloud is something that gives you what you're able to define, but maybe not exactly what you want, now you have the power to tailor exactly what you need, optimize the user experience that you want, but more importantly, deliver it in a cost-effective way that allows the agencies to really take advantage of both sides.
Exactly. I want to emphasize that, the cost-effective way, because what the cloud provided customers, what it really gave them was not advanced technology, it was not cool software, it was really a procurement model. It was a way to be able to reduce their CapEx, reduce infrastructure on-prem costs, and burst into the cloud when they needed it. Well, the government has a lot of flexible ways that they can achieve the same capital savings by using a co-located facility. You can actually do base plus option year or a managed service, pay-as-you-go type of contract to have the equipment there that you need, have it grow and shrink if the workload changes that requires that. And it allows them to reduce their capital expenditures and move that cost over to their operating expenses and help achieve some of the goals that OMB has set forth for them.
Absolutely, and I love that call out. The one I really like, though, is now the user is assured of a full stack observability component. That's what the rest of industry calls it. But now, because you're controlling it and it's tailored to the government organization, it's now full stack optimization. So the ability of this infrastructure to be easily consumed, to be dynamically upgraded as demand dictates, as the agency needs more information, more access, more capability, all can be spun up and then distributed via an ecosystem across the entire environment, still getting into the data center to leverage the investments that have been made, still getting into the cloud for the things that you want to go there, because you're always going to start developing in the cloud. The key comes down to where do you want to run operations to optimize the capability and minimize the cost. And the colo construct, as you mentioned, could be very powerful. In fact, I've heard, and there have been multiple studies done, that if you actually took this cloud to scale for some of the large organizations in the globe, you're going to double your infrastructure costs associated with that. And we've actually seen some early adopters, Dropbox, Home Depot, that have gone to the cloud, could not handle the expense associated with it, have brought them back onto prem, whereas this would have been a perfect intermediate step.
Absolutely. What you've described is the cloud paradox, where you're crazy if you don't start in the cloud because of the efficiency that it allows you, do your development, do your prototyping. But then you're crazy if you stay in the cloud because your year 5 or year end costs end up doubling, tripling what you would have spent on-prem or in a colo facility.
And you brought out a great point, and we've always said that if we could get CPU utilization to 30% within a data center, you're going to easily blow away cloud costs because you're efficiently using the infrastructure that's there. And because of Moore's Law and the fact that we're doubling capacity every short span of time, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, we can now bring capabilities into the colo to make it more cost effective, optimize for what the agency needs, and be able to deliver security on top of that. Because now, instead of going to a cloud and a multi-cloud environment, trying to get the visibility from the cloud provider, the hyperscale cloud providers into that area, you now control this environment. You know exactly what's coming in. You can control the ingress and egress into those environments, and you can put the workloads where it makes most sense. And now you can deliver enterprise policy exactly onto those workloads. It can drive it to the edge, and it's much easier to do that within a domain you control than something that might come from a hyperscale provider.
Absolutely. And control, efficiency, and insight is the key tenets of the colo. And I've got a question for you, Steve.
Absolutely.
Can you guess how much of the internet traffic goes through colo facilities?
Wow, I've got to guess it's really large.
Yeah.
70%.
90%, over 90% of all internet traffic actually flows through the colo. So if you're talking about insight and performance and optimization, your users are already going to be connecting to services that are transporting over the same network within the colo facility. And if we can get insight into our application performance, user experience, we're better able to meet our mission, to provide the experience our users or customers are expecting.
Absolutely. So building on that, if anyone has visited Ashburn, Virginia, Loudoun County is now the richest county in the country of the United States because it's filled with hyperscale data centers. At least 400 last count and counting. I happen to live there. I know this. But that is the internet.
Yeah.
The cloud
absolutely.
isn't the internet. This is the internet and that environment. And all we're doing is leveraging that to bring its optimal outcomes for agencies as opposed to turning to a provider that has an incentive to keep things the way they are, bring you into that environment. This gives you the ability to take it wherever your agency needs it to in order to optimize.
Absolutely, because there are going to be services in the cloud that you can't replicate on-prem that are just, they need to be used. And in the colo, you have less than 2 millisecond latency to that application, to that service provided in the cloud. And better yet, you have control over how you connect to it, what you allow to connect there, and where it goes from there. No shared hardware, no shared infrastructure, all controlled by you.
Great point. And all we have to do is go back to January of 2022, OMB's release of the 2209 memorandum for how do you get to a zero trust environment. And they say connect via the internet. They're not saying connect via the cloud. Right. They're connecting via this way is the most secure because you can control it. Being a retired naval intelligence officer, I will tell you, you better assume that adversaries are inside your network environment. I mean, that's the heart of what zero trust architectures are trying to do. Assume you've been compromised. And if you have an environment that you can control and access it via the internet, because that's really what these colo facilities are, but be able to tailor it to what you're doing, you have the best of all worlds. And guess what? I'm going to save you money.
That sounds like a deal to me.
Well, let's do this. Let's take this and start implementing it, because if an agency can take this, build on their existing data center environments, get to any cloud that they want, but be able to have the infrastructure that can scale, be easily consumable, be tailorable to their needs, and bring zero trust to bear, that is nirvana.
Absolutely. It's being adjacent to the cloud.
We've solved world hunger.
There we go. Thank you.
Take care.
So Steve, tell us a little bit about technology business management. That might be new to some of our audience here.
I think it's one of the most important things that many people have never heard of. Technology business management became the mandatory requirement when federal agencies developed their budgets about 3 years ago. And they phased it in over a 3-year period. David Shive, the CIO at GSA, and also Department of Education were the leaders in moving the federal government in this direction. And what it gives them for the first time is spend visibility, both on the IT side and on the mission side, that can be consistently tracked year over year. Now, lots of industries use it. Cisco, for example, we were one of the award winners just 3 years ago because it enables you to take a look at the cost pools, the money that you're paying for your IT elements and components, the services that come from those cost pools, and then the overall services that are delivered to produce the outcomes that are necessary. And that allows you to have a business conversation dialogue with the mission side that says, I want to invest this much in IT, and here's the impact it's going to have on the business or on the mission outcome of our organization. And now you get an understanding. And the government is beginning to move into that more and more. It's about the data transparency. So I think as we look at IT modernization and how that can be a foundational element for end-to-end architectures and end-to-end multi-domain approaches, that the more that we can help our clients understand that it is a multi-domain end-to-end approach that should be factored into the services that are being delivered, the more they're going to be successful with their outcomes.
Absolutely. And I think that one thing that I've seen in quite a few agencies, again, is the fact that they've got a lot of this gear in place, right? And so simply by adding feature sets on top of it via things like enterprise agreements to just, add software stacks becomes really effective. from the predictability of spend, but also, you know, your SLAs and really feeding OKRs down for key results, right? And you talked about that.
Yeah, you hit upon a really incredible point that is a foot stomper. Would you believe that Cisco is, I think, the 5th largest software company in the world right now? Everything we do is software defined, which means the network hardware can be around longer and it gets continual updates quarterly, monthly, so that we can bring new features, new functionality as part of the subscription that they've already gotten under an enterprise agreement, and that just comes with no additional cost. And that keeps the $6.5 billion in R&D that Cisco spends every year focused on the outcomes for our clients. And you and I both work with our clients as early field trials so that they can influence our product's feature set development so they get the best of both outcomes. To me, that's a win-win-win.
It is. Well, thank you for sharing that